Our story begins in the shadow of a legend, where myths are born, and fear has taken root in the hearts of men. The great Earth Dragon, a beast of immense size and unmatched ferocity, has terrorized the kingdom for centuries. Its roars echo across the land, sending tremors through the mountains, while flames from its mouth scorch the earth, leaving nothing but destruction in its wake. It is a creature of nightmares, a harbinger of doom, and yet, standing before it unmoved, is Karna, a 13-year-old boy with an almost eerie sense of calm. Karna stands alone in the vast, battle-scarred field, his figure dwarfed by the monstrous size of the dragon. The wind whips through his hair, but his expression remains impassive, almost bored. Around him, the remnants of failed heroes lay scattered, the charred and broken remains of those who had tried and failed to slay the beast. But Karna, he doesn't flinch. He doesn't even seem to register the danger in front of him. His eyes, half-lidded, seem to gloss over the world-renowned dragon like it's no more threatening than a stray cat. The Earth Dragon, sensing this disrespect, lets out a roar so deafening that the ground itself seems to shudder in response. Flames explode from its mouth, licking the sky as it pounces toward Karna, claws gleaming in the pale light. The creature, who has never known defeat, is certain of its victory. After all, how could this insignificant human possibly stand against it? But Karna barely moves. The dragon's claws, inches from tearing the boy apart, suddenly stop midair. For a heartbeat, time seems to freeze. The ferocious beast's momentum halted as though by some invisible force. And then, before the dragon can comprehend what's happening, its claws begin to disintegrate, crumbling into fine dust, blown away by the wind. The dragon roars in pain, staggering backward, watching in disbelief as its once mighty limbs dissolve before its very eyes. Karna, still standing with his arms crossed, lets out a small sigh. Pun. Maybe I overdid it, he mutters under his breath, as though pondering a minor inconvenience rather than having just neutralized one of the most powerful creatures in existence. With a flick of his wrist, Karna summons Wind of Decay, a swirling vortex of dark, necromantic energy that spirals outward, encircling the dragon in a suffocating shroud. The beast lets out a final, anguished wail as its body is consumed by the swirling force, its scales crumbling, its bones turning to dust, until nothing remains but a single rolling eyeball. The enormous, unblinking eye comes to a stop at Karna's feet, the last vestige of the legendary creature that once ruled the skies. Karna, ever practical, leans down and picks up the massive eyeball, holding it up to the light with a smirk. This'll fetch a nice reward, he muses aloud, already daydreaming about the gold he'll earn for completing this high-level quest. But just as he's beginning to savor his victory, something strange happens. The eyeball begins to dissolve, eaten away by the same magic that destroyed the dragon. Karna's grin falters as the prized item crumbles into dust, slipping through his fingers like sand. Seriously, he groans, staring in disbelief at his empty hands. His shoulders slump as the reality sets in. He just killed a legendary monster, and yet, no reward, no gold. Well, there goes the money for Grandma and Grandpa, he mutters, thoroughly deflated. You see, Karna's not in this for fame or glory. Sure, he's a prodigy with unmatched power, but his motivations are far more personal. His grandparents, the two people who raised him after his parents passed away, are everything to him. They live in a small, quiet village far from the dangers of the kingdom, and Karna has made it his life's mission to send them money, ensuring their comfort in their old age. Every quest, every battle is for them. But how did a 13-year-old boy come to possess such immense power? Let's rewind. In this world, when children turn 13, they undergo the ceremony of revelation, a sacred rite in which the gods reveal a person's innate abilities and assign them their job for life. Most children are given ordinary roles: farmers, soldiers, blacksmiths. But every now and then, someone is bestowed the gifted seal, marking them as truly exceptional. Karna was one such individual. During his ceremony, the gods branded him with the title of Wise Man, a title of immense prestige. Alongside this, Karna discovered he had a unique affinity for necromancy, a dark and powerful magic that allows him to manipulate the forces of life and death. From that moment, Karna's life changed. His powers grew rapidly, far surpassing those of his peers. Word of his abilities spread like wildfire, and soon enough, his reputation reached the ears of the kingdom's most powerful adventurers, the kingdom's premier party. This elite group was led by the hero, a legendary warrior who had vanquished countless foes and included a holy knight, a divine warrior blessed by the gods, and a battle master whose strength in combat was so fierce she could defeat armies with her bare hands. They approached Karna with an offer: help them defeat the Demon King, the ultimate evil that threatened the world. In exchange, Karna would receive a staggering 200,000 gold coins every single month. For someone like Karna, who had only ever thought of sending money back to his grandparents, the offer was irresistible. His eyes practically sparkled with visions of wealth as he accepted the proposal. His grandparents, of course, were supportive but concerned. "We're old, Karna," his grandmother had said, her voice soft with worry. "You don't need to burden yourself with us. Just find your own happiness." But Karna was resolute. They had cared for him when he had no one else. Now it was his turn to take care of them. With dreams of becoming the greatest wise man in history, and of sending enough gold to ensure his grandparents never had to worry again, he joined the hero's party and set off on the adventure of a lifetime. At first, everything seemed to be going well. The party faced one challenge after another, and each time, Karna's necromantic powers proved invaluable. Take, for instance, their battle deep in the dungeons of a forgotten ruin. A hulking demon, its skin as hard as iron, lunged at the battlemaster. She met the beast head-on, her fists flashing as she delivered blow after blow, but the demon wouldn't budge. Karna, wanting to assist, cast a quick spell, manipulating the earth around them into sludge bullets. The bullets tore through the demon's hide, splattering it in a grotesque explosion of gore. The battlemaster, covered in the remains, grimaced, stepping away from the steaming pile of sludge. "Whoops, whoops," Karna muttered sheepishly, scratching his head. "Maybe I overdid it." Another time, the group found themselves surrounded by a tribe of savage Boers. Outnumbered and facing certain doom, most would have panicked. But Karna, he barely blinked. With a wave of his hand, he summoned an army of skeletal warriors, his undead minions charging into the fray. The Holy Knight, however, wasn't exactly thrilled by this display of dark magic. Her lip curled in disgust as the skeletons tore into the orcs, and though she didn't say anything, Karna noticed the way her hand tightened around her holy relic. Then there was the double-headed demon dog. The hero, always eager to show off his legendary swordsmanship, stepped forward, sword drawn, ready to deliver a flashy finishing blow. But before he could strike, Karna raised a hand and fired off a ghost shot. The attack hit its mark, piercing the demon dog's chest and dropping it in a single hit. The hero blinked, lowering his sword. "That was fast," he said, his voice tight with forced cheerfulness. At first, Karna didn't notice the subtle tension building within the party. He was just doing his job after all. But the more he contributed, the more he began to sense a growing unease. The battlemaster's frustration after each of his overzealous spells, the Holy Knight's discomfort every time his undead minions appeared. Then one evening, as they made camp midway through their journey, the hero pulled Karna aside. His usual confident grin faltered as he scratched the back of his neck. "Karna, we need to talk," he began, avoiding eye contact. "The party, well, we've decided it's time for you to leave." Karna's heart sank. "What? Leave? But why?" His voice wavered with disbelief. He had been pulling his weight, hadn't he? More than that, actually. He had been a key player in every victory. Before the hero could respond, the battlemaster stormed in, her fists clenched. "You're the problem, Karna," she snapped, her voice dripping with frustration. "I can't fight properly with your disgusting magic flying all over the place. I'm a vanguard. I can't punch anything if it's been turned into sludge." Karna blinked in shock, but before he could respond, the Holy Knight stepped forward, her face pale. "It's not personal," she said quietly, though her expression showed clear discomfort. "But your necromancy? It's unsettling. I'm a Holy Knight. Dark magic like yours. It goes against everything I stand for." And then came the final blow. The battlemaster, her arms crossed, spat out the truth. "We only brought you along because we needed your revival magic. But now that the Holy Knight has learned the miracle of revival, we don't need you anymore. You're unnecessary." Karna stood there, stunned. His mind raced, trying to find a way to argue, to defend himself, but the words wouldn't come. The realization that he was being thrown out, not because of a lack of skill, but because they simply didn't like his magic, hit him like a punch to the gut. And to make matters worse, when he asked about his reward, the hero's expression grew even more awkward. Yeah, about that," he muttered. "Since you're still in the probation period, you're not eligible for the full 200,000 gold contract. No payments, I'm afraid." He offered Karna 2 measly gold coins. "Here, it's a token of my gratitude." Karna stared at the coins, his world crumbling. 2 coins. That's all he had to show for everything. 2 coins, and no way to send money back to his grandparents. No reward, no future with the party. And so Karna, the wise man with powers beyond his years, became unemployed cast out with nothing but his pride and a handful of dust. But it didn't end there. Word spread fast, faster than Karna could have imagined. His reputation as a useless wise man rippled through the adventurer community like wildfire. In the blink of an eye, it was as if he had been blacklisted from every guild, every adventurer's party in the kingdom. No one wanted to work with him. He was avoided like the plague, his once promising future as a gifted necromancer and wise man reduced to whispers and rumors of incompetence. Job offers? None. Allies? All gone. He had been branded a failure, and so Karna had no choice but to go solo, becoming a freelance adventurer, barely scraping by however he could. He took on minor jobs here and there, nothing like the prestigious quests he'd once dreamed of. Small-time hunts, monster exterminations, petty tasks for minimal pay, hardly enough to survive, let alone send money back to his grandparents. The glittering vision of wealth and success he had once chased now seemed like a distant dream, buried under layers of bad luck and worse reputations. That brings us back to the present moment. Karna stood, his brow furrowed in frustration, as he stared down at the decayed eyeball of the Earth Dragon, his latest attempt at securing a quest reward having literally crumbled to dust. He let out a deep sigh, the weight of his circumstances pressing down on him like a suffocating fog. This isn't how things were supposed to go, he muttered under his breath. The breeze rustled through the trees, but Karna barely noticed, lost in his own thoughts. The world had chewed him up and spit him out. What was left of his pride as a wise man felt as fragile as the dust that had once been a dragon's eye. But before he could wallow in his misery for too long, something stirred in his mind, a gentle tug, faint but persistent. His spirits were calling to him. Telepathically, they reported back from their scouting mission, their soft, ethereal voices echoing in his thoughts. Ever cautious, Karna had sent them out earlier to scout the area for anything of value. After his botched hunt, he didn't want to leave empty-handed. To his surprise, the spirits had found something. Focusing his mind, Karna allowed their vision to flood his consciousness, and through their eyes he saw it, a hidden metal gate deep within the forest, partially concealed by overgrown vines and moss. The gate was old, yet meticulously crafted, covered in intricate engravings that pulsed with faint magical energy. A gate? Karna whispered to himself, frowning. Why would a grand medieval structure like this be hidden in such a remote part of the forest? The aura radiating from the gate was unsettling, ancient, and it sent a shiver down his spine. Something about it was off, very off. Without wasting another second, toward the location his spirits had revealed. There was something important behind that gate. He could feel it. As he approached the towering structure, his breath hitched. The gate stood even taller than he'd expected, its metal surface shimmering with a strange, otherworldly glow. The air around it buzzed with energy, thick and oppressive. Meanwhile, in the depths of the castle, Karna sought to infiltrate. A demonic servant knelt before his mistress, Lord Cecilia Sama. Head bowed, he relayed the news. A human intruder had appeared at the gates. Seated on her ornate throne, Cecilia's crimson lips curled into a playful smirk. Her voluptuous frame shifted, and a glimmer of wicked curiosity flickered in her glowing eyes. A human? How delightful. The very thought sent a warm flush across her pale cheeks. Leaning forward slightly, her fingers traced the edge of the armrest, amusement mingling with hunger. What kind of entertainment, she wondered, had wandered so foolishly into her domain? A strange electric sensation rippled through Karna's hand, reacting violently with the magical mark on his palm. He gritted his teeth, taking a step closer. This is no ordinary barrier, he murmured, studying the engravings that snaked across the gate's surface. Whoever had built this fortress clearly hadn't intended for anyone to get inside, and that meant whatever was sealed within was probably something valuable. Rolling up his sleeves, Karna pressed his palm against the cold metal and closed his eyes, channeling his magic. The spell he cast was an aging spell, designed to accelerate the natural decay of the gate's material. As his necromantic power flowed through him, the metal began to creak and groan, rust forming rapidly along its surface. Within seconds, the ancient structure buckled, crumbling into dust beneath the weight of time. Karna grinned, satisfied. Perfect, he said, brushing the rust from his hands. The old spirit hovering nearby gave a low whistle, impressed by the young necromancer's clever use of time manipulation. But before Karna could step through the now open entrance, his instincts screamed danger. He jumped to the side just as a bolt of purple lightning slammed into the ground where he had been standing moments before, the force of the impact leaving a smoking crater in its wake. Narrowing his eyes, Karna glanced up to see a figure emerging from the shadows of the now revealed fortress. A demonic servant, his skin dark and crackling with energy, another ball of purple lightning sparking between his fingers. The demon eyed Karna with a look of disdain, but also curiosity. "Interesting," the demon mused, his voice deep and laced with amusement. "You dodged that? Impressive reaction speed for a human." He raised his hand, electricity dancing across his fingertips. In this world, demons are marked by the outer gods, a brand etched into their very essence, binding them to an existence within the dark world. In contrast, humans carry the divine seals of the heavenly gods, granting them a natural place among the realms of light. This fundamental difference is more than symbolic. It defines the very nature of their existence. While humans strive under the gaze of heaven's favor, demons are tethered to the shadows, their fate intertwined with the chaotic whims of the outer gods. There is no crossing between these realms, only tension, a fragile balance between light and darkness, sacred and cursed. Karna didn't flinch, meeting the demon's gaze calmly. "What's a demon doing in a place like this?" he asked, his voice steady, though his mind raced. If there was a demon guarding this place, it wasn't just an ordinary dungeon. The demon's lips curled into a cruel grin. "The real question, human, is what are you doing here? You've broken through the barrier protecting one of the 7 great demon lords' domains." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "This is Lady Cecilia's castle, and you've just trespassed." Karna's heart skipped a beat. A demon lord? Here? He hadn't expected that. "I didn't know this place belonged to a demon lord," he admitted, scratching the back of his head awkwardly. "I thought it was just, a regular dungeon." The demon servant, Bagor, couldn't believe his ears. This kid had the nerve to break into Lady Cecilia's castle and act like it was some kind of casual misunderstanding? Whether Karna was truly clueless or not, Bagor was done with pleasantries. His eyes gleamed with malice as he raised both hands, purple lightning crackling between his palms. "Let me show you the price of trespassing in my lady's domain," Bagor snarled, launching a bolt of lightning with a roar. The violent energy tore through the air, illuminating the entire courtyard in a flash of purple light as it shot toward Karna. Bagor sneered, confident that the intruder would be reduced to ashes. But when the dust settled, Bagor's sneer melted into wide-eyed shock. Karna stood there, completely unharmed, not even a singe mark on his clothes. The bolt of lightning had done nothing. "Impossible!" Bagor gasped, his voice trembling with disbelief. His despair's violet thunder was supposed to obliterate anything in its path. No one, least of all a human boy, should have survived it. Then, a deep, rumbling voice cut through the air like thunder. "You've been playing with borrowed power, boy." It wasn't Karna who spoke, it was the old spirit hovering beside him. The spirit, who had been Karna's companion for so long, wasn't just any ordinary spirit at all. He was Noan's, the true god of lightning, a figure of legend who had faded from memory. With a dismissive wave of his hand, Noan's dispelled the lingering remnants of Bagor's attack. "You're imitating a miracle I granted," the god said, his tone laced with disdain. "I won't allow a cheap knockoff to be used against my master." Bagor's face paled. "A god? Here? With this boy?" The demon's mind reeled. How could a human have a god on his side? Who the hell was this kid? Karna, meanwhile, looked up at Noan's with a grin. "You've really been holding out on me, haven't you, old man?" Noan's chuckled. "I didn't want to steal your thunder." The god winked. Bagor, paralyzed with fear, didn't have time to react as Noan's raised his hand, summoning a thunderbolt that crackled with pure divine power. "Step aside, Karna," the god instructed, preparing to unleash his attack. "Watch how it's really done." With a swift motion, Noan's hurled the bolt of lightning straight at Bagor. The demon's eyes widened in terror as the divine energy tore through the air, faster than any spell he had ever seen. There was no time to dodge. The bolt struck him square in the chest, and in an instant, Bagor was consumed by the electrifying force, his body disintegrating into a charred heap on the ground. As the dust settled, Noan's floated back down to Karna's side, his expression calm and unbothered. "Well, that takes care of him," the god said with a satisfied nod. Karna couldn't help but grin despite himself. "You really know how to put on a show, old man." Before Karna could move on, though, a sultry voice drifted across the courtyard, sending a chill down his... Well, that was quite the performance. The voice was smooth, almost playful, but with an edge of danger that made Karna's skin prickle. Turning slowly, Karna's eyes widened as he saw the figure approaching, a tall, voluptuous woman with flowing dark hair and feline-like eyes. She moved with a predatory grace, her presence radiating power so intense that even Noan seemed to acknowledge her with a subtle nod of respect. There was no mistaking it. This was Cecilia Isra Ferris, the lust demon lord herself. Karna's heart pounded in his chest as he struggled to remain composed. The sheer pressure of her presence was almost suffocating. He could barely move, every instinct in his body screaming at him to retreat. Cecilia smiled, clearly amused by his reaction. "Oh, don't look so frightened," she purred, stepping closer. "I'm not here to hurt you, little one." Karna swallowed hard, trying to steady his nerves. This was a demon lord. One wrong move, and he could be obliterated. Cecilia tilted her head, watching him with cat-like curiosity. "What's your name, little wise man?" "Karna Necromos," he stammered, trying to sound confident but failing miserably. Her eyes sparkled with interest as she circled him, her voice silky. "Karna, you're an intriguing one. I like the way you fought my servant. Very decisive." She paused, her smile widening as she leaned in closer. "How would you like to serve under me?" Karna blinked, his heart racing. "A job offer? From a demon lord?" He stepped back, shaking his head. I can't. People usually find my necromancy creepy. They'd probably kick me out of this job too." For a moment, something flickered in Cecilia's gaze. She saw beyond the nervous boy in front of her. She saw the pain of rejection, the sadness lurking in his words. Stepping closer, she took his hand gently, her tone soft but firm. "Humans are fools," she said, her voice low and filled with conviction. "They have no eye for true talent. Your necromancy is a thing of beauty, Karna. The most wonderful magic in the world. You belong at the top, by my side, where you'll be appreciated for your gifts." Karna hesitated, her words piercing through his defenses. For the first time, someone wasn't disgusted by his magic. For the first time, he felt like he belonged. But serving a demon lord? That would mean turning his back on humanity, on his grandparents, on everything he had worked for. He shook his head, an expression of determination etched on his face. "I can't do that. My family depends on me. I have to earn enough to provide them a better life." Cecilia's lips curved into a knowing smile, and that's when she unleashed her surprise. "How about a signing bonus of 2 million gold and an annual salary of 20 million gold?" She delivered this bombshell with the casualness of discussing the weather, as if those staggering figures were nothing more than pocket change. Karna's eyes widened in disbelief, nearly bulging out of his head. 2 million gold? And an annual salary of 20 million. His mind struggled to process the enormity of it all. "But the real clincher? I'll also guarantee your family's safety," Cecilia added, her smile warm and inviting. In that instant, the weight of her offer crashed down on him. It was all too much to grasp. Without a moment's hesitation, he exclaimed, "I accept." The allure of wealth, coupled with the promise of protection. How could he possibly refuse? His entire existence flipped on its head in an instant. Cecilia's smile widened, welcoming Karna into her fold with an infectious enthusiasm. But just before they could step into the imposing castle, she handed him a peculiar mask, shaped like a dragon's head. "For the sake of peace and convenience," she explained. "While I've personally vouched for you, many demons might still be uneasy about having a human in our midst. This will help keep your identity concealed." Karna blinked, the mask heavy in his hands. "Is this because I've done something wrong?" he asked, nerves creeping into his voice. Cecilia laughed, a melodious sound that eased the tension. "No, not at all," she reassured him, her eyes twinkling. "It's merely a precaution. Demons can be unpredictable." Behind them, Bagor, still smoldering and immobilized from their earlier confrontation, managed to croak. "Why, master? Why would you take him in? He's just a human." Instead of snapping at him, Cecilia knelt beside her loyal servant, affectionately patting his head. "Of all demons, you should understand my choice the best," she said softly. "You fought him. You witnessed his strength. Anyone with half an eye can see that Karna will be an invaluable asset to our army." With that, she stood tall and leveled a knowing look at Bagor. "I need you to keep his human identity under wraps." Bagor, still weak but unwaveringly loyal, nodded, understanding the gravity of her request. Karna hesitated, uncertainty gnawing at him. Working under a demon lord wasn't what he envisioned when dreaming of sending money back to his grandparents. Yet, Cecilia's gaze, firm yet compassionate, melted his doubts. The truth was, he had little choice, and he recognized it. Finally, he sighed, accepting the reality that lay ahead. But a question nagged at him, a burning curiosity that had lingered since their deal began. "Do demons hate humans?" he asked, his voice uncharacteristically innocent, even to himself. Cecilia raised an eyebrow, intrigued. It was evident that Karna had yet to be tainted by the bitterness that clouded so many others' hearts. He genuinely struggled to understand the relentless conflict between demons and humans. Recognizing his innocence, Cecilia decided to shed light on the matter, though the story she was about to share was steeped in centuries of bloodshed and betrayal. Long ago, she began, her voice taking on a grave tone. The old gods descended to liberate humanity from the reign of dragons, fearsome beings who enslaved your kind. The people, in their gratitude, revered the gods as their saviors. But as time wore on, greed took root. Humanity seized the gods' powers and, in their arrogance, imprisoned them. Enraged, one of these gods, Bastet, created demons from her hatred for humans. But before she could unleash her full wrath, she too was sealed away with the others. We, the demons, inherited her malice, which is why we harbor such resentment towards humans. Karna stood in stunned silence, absorbing her words. It was the first time he had encountered this perspective, and it left a bitter taste in his mouth. Guilt coiled around his heart as he contemplated his humanity, part of a race that had betrayed the very gods they once adored. Did he bear responsibility for that? He wasn't sure. Noticing his turmoil, Cecilia placed a comforting hand on his shoulder, her touch surprisingly warm. "Don't let it burden you too much," she said gently. "Humans may have started off greedy, but they've also created remarkable things. Cultures of kindness, love, and growth. You can't judge an entire race by the actions of a few." Her words flowed like a balm, soothing the gnawing doubt within him. For the first time, he felt a flicker of hope. While he was born human, he need not be shackled by the misdeeds of his forebears. With that newfound clarity, Karna's resolve ignited once more. "All right then," he declared, his spirits buoyant. "What's my first task, boss?" His enthusiasm radiated from him, drawing a light chuckle from Cecilia. As they moved forward, Bagor swung open the grand castle gates, demanding the attention of the assembled demons. "Behold our new masked comrade," he bellowed, his voice booming. "A magnificent demon who commands an old god and defeated me in battle." The demons gathered at the entrance exchanged skeptical glances, their wariness palpable. They could smell something amiss about this newcomer, a faint, unmistakable human scent lingering around him. Karna could feel their suspicious gazes piercing into him, but Bagor's high rank ensured they kept their mouths shut. Still, judging by their expressions, they weren't entirely convinced. His human essence was challenging to mask, but for now, he had the Demon Lord's protection, and that was what mattered. Upon entering the inner chambers, Cecilia turned to him with a mischievous smile. "In time, I want you to climb the ranks, to become a general in my army," she announced, as casually as if suggesting he'd take out the trash. Karna blinked in disbelief. A general? He had simply aimed to send money home, and now she expected him to lead an entire demon army? The notion left his mind spinning, but Cecilia quickly clarified, "But for now, you'll work alongside me, learning the ropes." She winked playfully. "I expect great things from you." A mix of excitement and trepidation swirled within him, but that apprehension quickly morphed into dread as they stepped into Cecilia's private chambers. Her room was a catastrophe. Clothes lay scattered like a tornado had torn through, books were strewn across the floor, and random objects cluttered the corners. It resembled a war zone. He gaped, dumbfounded. How did it get this bad?" he blurted out before he could catch himself. Cecilia's cheeks flushed and she crossed her arms defensively. "I try to clean," she muttered, avoiding his gaze. "It just never stays clean for long." Karna raised an eyebrow, grappling with the reality that the mighty Demon Lord of Lust lived in such disarray. Was this really his grand first task? "Well, at least I'm being paid a fortune for this," he muttered under his breath, rolling up his sleeves. Cecilia grinned, sensing his determination. "That's the spirit. I'll leave it to you," she said, stepping out of the room and giving him one last wink. "I'll return by nightfall. Make me proud." Karna glanced at the spirits floating nearby, equally shocked by the magnitude of the mess. "All right, team. Let's get to work," he said, though deep down, he felt utterly lost on where to even begin. To their surprise, the first thing he did was grab one of the scattered books and flip it open. Old Man No-Ends, observing from the corner, frowned. "Kid, we're supposed to be cleaning, not reading." Karna shot him a cheeky grin. "I'm not slacking off. I'm gathering intel." He waved the book triumphantly. "If I want to make her room perfect, I need to understand her better. Knowing what she reads and what she enjoys will help me set it up just right." His logic might not have been conventional, but it was sound. Of course, conducting all that research alone would take forever, so Karna enlisted his spirits for help. Each one snatched a book, flipping through the pages and telepathically relaying the contents back to him through ectoplasm. The process was surprisingly efficient. Almost too efficient. Within minutes, Karna had absorbed a vast catalog of demon history, culture, and, most importantly, Cecilia's personal tastes. His spirits watched in awe at how quickly he grasped the information, but Old Man No-Ends shook his head in concern. "Be careful, boy. You're going to burn out if you push yourself too hard." But Karna merely grinned. "I'm fine. We've got this." Energized by his newfound knowledge, he turned his focus back to the task at hand. Armed with insights into what made the Demon Lord tick, he and his spirits set to work. Every item was organized with care, every book returned to its rightful place, and slowly but surely, the chaos of Cecilia's room was brought to heel. Hours passed, and though the undertaking was overwhelming, Karna felt an unexpected sense of fulfillment growing within him. It wasn't glamorous work, but he was making a difference. By the time the sun began to set, the once cluttered room was tidy, organized, and polished, fit for a demon lord. This was his inaugural day under Cecilia's banner, and although it had been a whirlwind of emotions, Karna felt he was beginning to carve out his niche. Yet ahead lay countless challenges, so many questions unanswered. But for now, he had transformed chaos into order, and that was a commendable start. As night descended, Cecilia returned to her chambers, fully expecting to see only a modest improvement at best. However, the moment she swung open the door, her eyes widened in astonishment. What had once been a chaotic disaster now appeared perfectly arranged, almost gleaming under the soft glow of the lanterns. Every corner sparkled, every item was meticulously placed, and the entire room had been tailored to her tastes. Cecilia blinked, her mind reeling from the astonishing transformation before her. "You did all this?" she asked, gazing at Karna and his spectral companions, disbelief etched across her face. Karna stood tall, a modest smile gracing his lips. "Well, it wasn't all me. My spirit companions did the heavy lifting. Without them, I'd still be buried under a mountain of books." He gestured toward the spirits orbiting him, their ectoplasmic forms shimmering with pride. Cecilia turned to them, her demeanor softening. "Thank you," she said, her voice laced with genuine appreciation, a stark contrast to her usual sultry, teasing tone. She faced Karna again, warmth radiating from her smile. "You've truly exceeded my expectations, Karna. I'm so grateful you came into my life." The sincerity in her words caught him off guard, her smile free of any hidden agendas or playful barbs. Karna rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly bashful. "Just happy to help," he said with a grin. Then a thought struck him, and he hesitated before continuing. While I was organizing, I noticed something curious." Cecilia raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "I found some human books under your bed," he continued cautiously. "So, I organized them with the other literature on the shelf. I didn't know you were into human authors. Biographies, poetry collections, cookbooks, and romance novels." Cecilia's cheeks flushed crimson as the realization dawned that her secret stash had been discovered. Instinctively, she brought a hand to her face, flustered beyond belief. Romance novels of all things. Her usual confident, commanding demeanor wavered as she scrambled for an excuse. Well, she stammered, words escaping her. Karna blinked, catching her flustered state. "I mean, I'm not judging or anything," he quickly added. "I just didn't expect the demon lord of lust to be into romance novels." Still blushing, Cecilia gently took one of the books from his hand and hugged it to her chest, looking away and biting her lip in embarrassment. "Please, don't tell anyone," she whispered, revealing that this wasn't merely about her reading preferences. Something deeper lurked beneath. After a pause, her voice turned softer, laden with emotion. "The truth is, I dream of creating a world where demons and humans can coexist. I've studied human culture for ages, wanting to understand them, how they think, what they value, how they love." Karna stared at her, taken aback. He hadn't anticipated such a vision from a demon lord, especially one like Cecilia. She continued, her gaze distant, as if wandering through her thoughts. "Humans and demons have always been at odds, but they possess so much that remains a mystery to us. Concepts like love, marriage, and family are nearly non-existent in the demon realm. That's why I read these books. I long to understand love." Karna struggled to find his voice, astonished by her idealism. For a moment, the notorious demon lord of lust faded from his mind, revealing a person striving to navigate a world she scarcely understood. Cecilia felt exposed, vulnerable in a way she hadn't dared to be in centuries. Yet, there was no turning back now. She closed the distance between them, her gaze locking onto Karna's. "You've uncovered parts of me I've kept hidden for far too long," she said softly, her tone sultry yet tender. "It's not fair that you know so much about me, while I know so little about you." Karna's heart raced as she moved closer, the warmth of her presence enveloping him. He fought to maintain his composure, but his thoughts scattered, focusing on the obvious distractions right in front of him. Cecilia, keenly aware of his turmoil, allowed a playful smile to dance at the corners of her lips. "So tell me, Karna," she whispered, her hand brushing lightly against his shoulder, sending a shiver down his spine. "How did you end up making a contract with the old gods?" Karna blinked, momentarily disarmed by her proximity. His mind scrambled for a coherent response, but all that emerged was, "Wait, that's what you wanted to know?" Cecilia leaned in closer, her breath warm against his skin as she teased. "What did you think I was going to ask?" Her voice blended amusement and seduction, though a light blush still tinged her cheeks. Karna, his face flushing, stammered, "Nothing. I wasn't thinking about anything else, I swear. His flustered expression betrayed his every thought. Sensing his discomfort, Cecilia stepped back slightly, allowing him some breathing space while keeping her mischievous gaze fixed on him. So, the old gods? She inquired, now genuinely intrigued. Karna sighed, gathering his thoughts. Well, it's kind of a strange story. I jokingly call the old gods my grandparents these days, he said with a small smile. They used to be my neighbors. Cecilia's eyes widened in surprise. Neighbors? What do you mean? Karna rubbed his neck, preparing to share his tale. It all began after I received my mark at the ceremony of revelation. My real grandparents owned a piece of land surrounded by spirits. The miasma of death made it impossible for them to expand their farm, and they struggled to make ends meet. They didn't want to burden me with their troubles, but I always knew. He paused, his voice softening. So one night, while they slept, I snuck out. I couldn't bear the thought of them suffering. I figured if I could rid the land of the spirits, they could expand the farm and finally breathe easy. Cecilia listened intently, her gaze unwavering. Karna continued. I used my necromantic powers to gather and disperse the spirits from the land. But as I did, the ground beneath me gave way. I fell into this massive pit, deep into the earth. He gestured dramatically, trying to convey the enormity of his fall. I thought I was done for. The descent seemed endless. He chuckled lightly, though the memory wasn't pleasant. Fortunately, I managed to cushion my landing with some necromantic sludge. When I reached the bottom, I discovered an ancient tomb, and that's where I encountered the old gods. They'd been sealed away, just waiting for someone to find them. Cecilia's eyes sparkled with fascination. And that someone was you. Karna nodded, his gaze drifting as he recalled the scene. As he took in his surroundings, he spotted a small pyramid hidden beneath the farmland, its ancient architecture both impressive and foreboding. What on earth is that doing here? The thought resonated within him as he scrutinized the structure. It resembled a dungeon, vast and ominous. But what could such an imposing edifice be doing beneath his grandparents' land? He couldn't shake the feeling that this might be the very source of the curse plaguing the farm. The curse that attracted vengeful spirits and rendered the land barren. Determined to investigate, Karna stepped forward, but before he could proceed, a deep voice commanded him to stop. An old man, brandishing a thunderbolt trident, materialized before him, radiating raw power. A dragon, its massive form coiled protectively around the entrance of the pyramid, accompanied him. Karna, despite the fear gnawing at his insides, stood his ground. Who are you? He demanded, striving for steadiness in his voice. The old man, his tone thunderous, introduced himself as Noens, an ancient god, asserting that this was their resting ground. This is the graveyard of the gods, mortal, Noens proclaimed, his voice echoing through the air. You have no business here. Depart at once. Panic surged through Karna as the gravity of the situation sunk in. He had stumbled upon a sacred site, the grave of the gods that should never be disturbed. Yet despite his fear, he couldn't bring himself to leave. He had come here to lift the curse ravaging the land, to save his grandparents. Returning empty-handed wasn't an option. No, Karna said, his voice trembling yet resolute. I can't leave. I need to lift the curse. Noens raised his trident, violet lightning crackling through the air like a storm on the verge of eruption. Hearing a mortal defy him stirred a wave of nostalgia in the old god. It had been ages since a human had dared challenge him. You wish to defy me, child? Noens asked, amusement glimmering in his ancient eyes. Very well, you'll regret it. With a flick of his wrist, the god unleashed his despairing violet lightning, illuminating the cavern in a blinding flash of chaos. Karna barely had time to react, summoning a necromantic sludge shield to absorb the impact. The electric arc collided with his barrier, but it was akin to trying to stop a tsunami with a handful of mud. The lightning sliced through his shield, striking him with excruciating pain, paralyzing his muscles and jolting his entire being. What is this? He gasped, struggling to stand. You can't just... Noens' laughter echoed through